Hey guys, I hope you had a great weekend. Today we are going to be doing a worksheet about measurement. And you're going to get another video that for later on this week that's going to be a little bit more in depth about measurement. And I'm going to read you a story and talk about standard units of measurement. Today we're going to work on non-standard units of measurement. And for non-standard units of measurement, it just means that you're using anything you can in the world to measure with to measure an object, to tell how long it is, or how tall something is, how wide something is. And it may not be the same for you as it is for someone else. And the reason that is because you're not using the same object. And even if we do use the same object, you could look at the same thing and you could have different sizes. So, for example, I have two paper clips here, but even though they are both paper clips and they're both made out of metal, they're not different colors, they're not different objects, but they are different sizes. So the amount of amount of paper clips I use to measure something will be different if I'm using this size or this size. So when I say that you have to use them to measure something, what you're going to do is you're going to line it up with the object, and you're going to see how wide something is. And how wide something is how many it fit across. And when we measure using a non-standard unit, we want them to be lined up touching each other, because to get an accurate number, and accurate means correct number. And so, for example, I would line them up touching one end to another. And it's hard for me to hold this and for you to see, but you would do that and count how many it goes across. And that is actually how long something is or how wide something is. So we're going to measure going up and down, or we can measure going across. And again, if I were to use this paper clip versus this paper clip, even though they're both paper clips, I would get a different number. And so, like I said, you could use anything as a non-standard unit of measurement, which is not something that would be the same no matter who is using it and what you have. So this is a ruler. These are standard units of measurement, and we'll talk more about that later this week. But this worksheet, I could use a Post-it note. I could put a bunch of Post-it notes across, and I could find out how long or wide or tall something is. I could use a pen. Now, obviously, if I look at a paper clip and a pen, I'm going to have to use more of this paper clip, or even more of this paper clip, to measure something than I would a pen, because these objects are smaller in size. So the smaller in size of the object you're using to measure a different object, the more you're going to need. The bigger that object you're using as your measurement object, the one you're using to measure, not the one you are measuring, is going to be less because it's bigger and it's taking up more space. So you can clearly see that when I'm trying to measure my book, I'm going to use a pen. If I'm using my pen as my measurement, it's just a little over one pen to go up and down the book, but it would be lots more of the paperclip. Now, if I am using the pen to measure and it doesn't go all the way, I'm not going to say 2 pens, because then it would be too many. So if I'm going to keep track of where the pen stops, I'm going to put my finger here, and then I'm going to put the pen up again. And as we see, it only will go to the not even the middle of the pen. So it's about 1 pen length, 1 1/4 probably of a pen for the length of the height of this book. So it would be that number for the pen. And I'm going to lay this. This is very hard to show holding up, but I'm going to do it with the small paper clips and see how many paper clips it takes. And I'm going to lay it down to measure this, and then I will try to hold it up with all of the paper clips, but it might fall. So I have a box of paper clips over here that I'm using, and these are the small paper clips. And I'm going to line them up touching each other. Otherwise, it's not going to be accurate. If I do this and they're next to each other, then I'm not measuring how tall something is. I'm measuring how wide it is. And if I do it like this, it's not an accurate measurement because they're not touching and there's space in between them. So I want to make sure that they're as close as possible and not one like this and one like that. Because again, then you're not measuring how long it is. So right now I have 2 on my book. Whoops, this is very hard to do on a book. 1, 2, because the book since I've read the book, it wants to open up. 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the book, and if I hold them up, I know they're going to fall. So I'm going to try and tilt it. But if I tilt it too much, they've already fallen. But I would hold it, if I were to hold it up, you would see 6 paper clips going down the book. Let's see if I can measure something else that you could see. So I'm going to measure this Post-it note, but I'm going to hold it up onto my phone. So if I were to measure it going across, I would start at the very edge of the object with my paper clip, and I would line them up, touching, not like this because there's a space between them. I want to move this one over so it's touching. So right now we have 2 paper clips and there's a little bit of space. So we would say it's just over 2 paper clips wide or across. And then I would see if it's the same number going down the the Post-it note. And it's about the same going down. And in an object that is square like this, perfect square, then I don't have to measure the going across again because these are going to be the same length. And actually in any square, any object, the length, you only have to measure going across once and going down once if the object has the same, you can tell that it has the same on both sides that go across and both sides that go down. So hopefully this helps you to understand how to do your worksheet for today, which is your paperclip measurement. Sorry, I'm trying to grab it. Your paperclip measurement activity. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a book about estimating and what it means to estimate. I showed you how to measure an actual measurement using a non-standard unit of measurement. You're going to do that on your worksheet here, and you're going to use these paper clips at the bottom. You're going to cut them out, and you're going to line them up so that they are touching each other, not having a space between, not going up and down for one and across for the other. They need to be the same direction, and they need to be touching. But before you can do that, you have to make a guess. And a guess is an estimate, which means that you don't know if you're going to be right or not until you test it out. And it's okay if your guess was wrong. That's why it's called a guess. But that's why it's important that after we guess, we measure it to find out the accurate um, length. And when you estimate, you aren't just using estimations for length or for measurement. You also can estimate how many of something. And that's what this book is mostly about. So, what I want you to understand, so for example, it says here, be, to estimate the number of objects here, you're going to think of a strategy that you can do to not have to count every single object. Just like when you estimate how long you think something is, you can say, okay, I can look at this paperclip and I know it's this long or this tall. How many do I think, without testing it, how many do I think are going to go across? So if I look at this, I know this is a pretty small post-it note. So it's probably not going to be a big, huge number like 10. And I already know because I did measure it first. But what I want to do next time is I don't want to measure something first. I want to make my estimation first. So if I were to look at this tissue box here, I could say, let me think. If I'm going down, I want to think in my mind, this paperclip is going to be about 4 of these to go down. And after I write down my estimate or my guess, I'm going to take the paperclip and I'm going to measure it to see if I was correct or not. And if I wasn't correct, that's okay. That's why we test things out. It's like when you make a hypothesis in science, which you've probably done with Miss Reyes before. So a hypothesis is an educated guess. It means you take what you already know and you make a guess. We're making a hypothesis or an estimate or a guess based on what we know about the size of this paperclip and how long we think it's going, or how much of it it's going, how many of them, are going to take to fill that object. So again, you're going to make your guess first, and you can cut these out first and look at them and think, is how many do I think without putting them onto the object? You're going to start at the first dot and measure to the second dot when you're using when you're using the paper clips. But when you're just estimating or guessing, you don't want to use them. You want to think, how many can I guess are going to fit across here? And then write that on the line that says guess. And then you're going to write the number of paper clips on the actual measurement. And if you have any questions, you can see me for my office hours between 1 o'clock and 2:30 today. And your parents have the link to the Zoom meeting. And if you need it again, feel free to message me and I will send it to you. I hope that you understand and that you're able to complete this independently. Have a great day, guys. Bye.